वज़ीर मुमलकत हिना रब्बानी खर न्यूज़ कॉन्फ्रेंस कर रही हैं।
Massacre in Indian Gujarat, which made some countries close its door on many well-known Indian leaders, and which still ensures that many other Indian leaders still continue to glorify this incident. They want to identify with that incident rather than away from the incident. This shows the psyche which is currently going on, and I tell you it's a dangerous one. The Samjhota train incident that we all know about, its terrorist proxies continue to use neighbors' territories and blatant support to Baloch militant organizations. All of these point to one objective and one method. The objective is to undermine Pakistan's peace and security, and the method is simple: terrorism. Supported and abetted by the state. The Lahore incident, the Samjhota train incident, the Yadev evidence all point out to that. You play as a victim of terrorism to gain international sympathy and create subterfuge. No country has used terrorism better than India. To play on the back of the attention of the world on terrorism and to play the victim, no country has benefited from it better than India. Portray yourself or itself as the champion of counter-terrorism. And it's interesting because this continues to be a country which has made no contribution whatsoever to has always played lip service, but had made no contribution to international counterterrorism in any way. If you compare Pakistan and India, you will find Pakistan always be in the forefront of counterterrorism, of ensuring that we are a player in the world to try and make sure that terrorism does not continue to haunt us. It also continues to divert international attention from its state-sponsored terrorism and human rights violations in the IIOJK. It blatantly violates international laws and regulations to continue terrorist activities and their support, facilitation and financing. Maybe it will not be very wise to bring it in this context, but allow me to remind all of you that India is a country which continues to be what I call a rogue state. Because the country that tries to deny the existence of Security Council resolutions and insists on other countries imagining a certain part of disputed territory as its own shows what type of a mindset this country has. And I can say, of course, it's a very, very dangerous mindset. Create hurdles in judicial proceedings when terrorism cases are sub judice. Paralyze United Nations Security Council. And this is also very rich because, do what you blame others for. Okay? So India has been consistently paralyzing United Nations Security Council's sanctions regime.
This half-hourly clock is brought to you by
Golden Pearl Healthy White Moisturizing Lotion
and
नेस्ले बुनियाद है अब नए आयरन प्लस के साथ जो है 3 गुना ज्यादा मौसर.
and
Endure. Unlock fashion for every you.
Binda Patnaik, Parthasarthi, Rajesh Kumar and Mr. Dungara. All 4 names blocked by India in UNSC listing. And obviously, I think I don't need to remind anyone that India has had a constant role in destabilizing its neighboring countries and weaken their economies to try and pursue its hegemonic designs in the region. CPEC, Balochistan are very good examples. I also question, I can just try and remind India that you cannot have islands of excellence in a sea of depravity. So when you try and harm your region, you actually end up harming yourself. Now, we can understand that India is currently very frustrated because Pakistan has been, because of the delisting of Pakistan from FATF's grey list, right? They have completely mastered the art of using international organizations for their political gains. I think they should give lessons on that type of diplomacy to the world. Now, this cannot change the fact that India remains the recruiter, the financier, the facilitator of various terrorist outfits and foreign terrorist fighters within the region. The world may be ignoring this, what I would consider to be a festering pool of terrorism, but at its own peril. What is ironic, as I've already said, is that India has been beating the terrorism drum, chairing UNSC meetings on terrorism. Now it has been caught red-handed in this particular incident, orchestrating terrorist attacks in its neighboring country, Pakistan. Let me be clear to you, and as I've already said, when you burn your own, neighbor's house, the fire will reach you too. I think India should desist from this policy and start looking at this region as a neighborhood that it is. India's unabated slip into the abyss of extremism is being clouded by this growing India, emerging India narrative. And let me conclude by saying, because you might be asking what is the, yes, this is all the evidence, the dossier is there, but what is the purpose? We believe truly that the international community, in particular the UN and FATF, have the responsibility now to hold India accountable for its terrorist actions. So we are looking for accountability. The Lahore incident for us is a test case for the credibility and integrity of international counterterrorism and counter-financing of terrorism regimes. The world must show that efforts to counter terrorism are non-discriminatory. The international conscience cannot be held hostage to what are clearly political and economic exigencies of the time. I also want to draw the world's attention to the victims who lost lives or were injured in the Lahore terrorist incident, as well as their families and loved ones. They look towards all of us for justice. We have shared this dossier with the members of the United Nations Security Council. We are also sharing it with the UN Secretary General. We hope that they would look into this evidence and fulfill their responsibility. Pakistan, for its part, will remain fully committed to eradicate terrorism in all its form and manifestations. As far as this specific issue is concerned, I know you already know from the Interior Minister's briefing, but I will just repeat. Red warrants through Interpol have already been issued. Mutual legal assistance requests to countries whose territory has been used for this incident have been sought, and we are, as we already said, will be formally taking it up at the UN. We have shared the copies, are in the process of sharing the copies of the dossier with the Security Council members and the United Nations Security Secretary General. And our expectations of the world is that if this is allowed, because of India's growing, because of what we call the exigencies of political and economic interest, we will all have to pay the price for it. We will all have to pay the price for it. So with that. Yes.
मैम अलानुर वजीर मशरिक टीवी चैनल से गुलभूषण यादव और फिर अभिनंदन और अभी ये जो मौजूदा हुआ है, तो क्या आप पर उम्मीद है कि भारत को इन सब कुछ का सजा मिलेगा?
उम्मीद पे दुनिया कायम है, सॉरी। सो देखें, जो फैक्ट है वो ये है कि अगर कोई मुल्क एक दूसरे के ऊपर हम वो तो कह सकते हैं, एलिगेशंस लगाना आसान है, ये मुल्क ये करता है, ये अगर एक मुल्क का एक एजेंट पकड़ा जाए, फिर वो पूरी तरह कह भी दे कि वो किसके एजेंडे पे आया था, किसका एजेंट था, और वो हाजिर सर्विस हो और वो निकल जाए, और फिर भी दुनिया उसको तस्लीम ना करे या उसको क्वेश्चन, सो दैट वुड बी आयरॉनिक. सो हाँ, हमें इस पे उम्मीद है कि ये जो इनका ट्रेल ऑफ एविडेंस आता जा रहा है, मैंने बल्कि आपसे नाम नहीं लिया, आपने अब ये मौका दिया, तो मैं इसका बताना चाहूंगी कि पिछले 3 सालों में 211 individuals of law enforcement agencies have been attacked through raw-sponsored attacks. There have been 1,213 attacks in Pakistan in the last 3 years where we have evidence that they were raw-sponsored. Now, if I take you through the list of the last, आप कह रहे हैं ना कि उम्मीद इसी चीज़ पे हो सकती है ना कि दुनिया को नजर आ जाए, सामने आ जाए कि कितना ज़्यादा उनकी तरफ से ये होता जा रहा है. Now, attack on PC Hotel Gwadar, 11th May 2019. Attack on Chinese Consulate Karachi, November 2018. Attack on Oil Exploration Company at Gwadar, October 15th, 2020. Suicidal attack at Gwadar, 20th August 2021. Suicidal attack on FC camp at Panjgor Noshki, February 2022. Indian disinformation campaign we all know about. So really, my question is, how much is too much? And is this not too much? And how would we allow a country to drum the terror, to use the terrorism drum on a platform like the Security Council? And how do we deny, then questions are asked about the credibility of these institutions, of course. So I think this is clearly a very serious matter, and real questions need to be asked.
Yes, ma'am. थैंक यू मैम। मिनिस्टर साहिबा, मैं आपसे जानना चाहूंगी, राशदा सियाल अब तक से पुलवामा अटैक हो जाए, पठानकोट हो जाए या मुंबई अटैक्स हो जाते हैं, तो पाकिस्तान के ऊपर जिस तरीके से इंडिया की जानिब से जो एक केस, स्ट्रॉन्ग केस बनाया जाता है इंटरनेशनल लेवल पे, फिर फैटफ में भी पाकिस्तान को पॉलिटिसाइज करके जिस तरीके से ब्लैकमेल किया जाता है या प्रेशराइज किया जाता है, जो आपने एक पूरी सिलसिले बताए जो अटैक्स इंडिया ने किए पाकिस्तान में, क्या वजह है कि हम उस तरीके से अपना केस नहीं लड़ सकते? हमारा डिप्लोमेटिक फेलियर है या क्या वजह है कि फैटफ के अंदर हम इंडिया को लिस्टिंग क्यों नहीं करवा सकते हैं? एक तो ये जानना चाहूंगी। सेकेंडली, इससे हटके आपका रिसेंटली अफगानिस्तान का विजिट हुआ और उस विजिट के हवाले से भी कुछ बात हुई कि वहां पर आपकी जो मीटिंग्स थी हाई ऑफिशियल्स के साथ वो नहीं हो सकी हैं। इसमें किस हद तक सदाकत है कि एक खातून वजीर खारजा के जाने से शायद वहां कोई मसाइल हुए? ये एक इंप्रेशन है और नेशनल असेंबली में भी इस पे बात हुई है, तो इस पे आपका मौक़िफ़ जानना चाहूंगी। शुक्रिया।
Okay. Again, I will not entirely agree with, I will speak in English because, I will not entirely agree with the fact that we have not been able to make a case. Okay. As I said, and I repeat, and I say this because as someone who's been associated with foreign policy management for many years now, I would have wished, I would have hoped 10 years back that 10 years from then, we'd be looking at a different region. That we'd be looking at a region which was at least moving towards opening doors towards each other, for its people, towards prosperity. But we see this continuation of trying to, bog the region down with the scourge of terrorism, right? Now these incidents, the fact that you have Yadav here, all these are clear signs of a very large country trying to dampen the entire region through its, what I would consider nefarious designs, right? I don't think these designs are good for India also, because India is also part of the neighborhood. It should want the prosperity of the neighborhood. Now that thought process is something that you can't change, that we would like to be able to change. So if you see in the last 5 to 10 years, India has changed tactics and become much worse than it used to be, where it is now propagating, extremism in some ways, and propagating against certain minorities. What it did in IIOJK, what it did for its own elections, sent jets into one nuclear power, sending jets into another nuclear power. Do we need evidence of more irresponsible behavior for the world? That's evidence enough. And then we all found out what was in there, in Balakot, which was told, the world was told that there were certain camps, etc., and we found there were some trees. That's it. Do we need more evidence as to what country is doing what? So I think that case is well made. I don't think it is. But as I said, there is the reality, and I'm not, I'm clearly saying this. There are political and economic exigencies which are making some entities look away from obvious things. We decided that we are not going to take any other questions, but that, नहीं एक मिनट, अफगानिस्तान के ऊपर नहीं लेना था, लेकिन क्योंकि ये क्लैरिफिकेशन देने का मौका मिल रहा है, इसलिए मैं ये क्वेश्चन बिल्कुल लूंगी. देखें, पहले तो हमारा एक असूल है, and I'm using this opportunity, thank you for giving me this, हम दफ्तर खारजा हैं, ठीक है? स्पोक्स पर्सन दफ्तर खारजा को रिप्रेजेंट करती हैं. हम सारे यहाँ पे जो लोग बैठे हैं वो आला अफसरान दफ्तर खारजा के हैं. उनका मैंडेट सोशल मीडिया मैनेजमेंट नहीं है, उनका मैंडेट हुकूमत पाकिस्तान के लोगों के इंटरेस्ट को प्रिजर्व करना और अपनी जॉब करना है. So please forgive us if we consider that to be a secondary job, not the. So we are less careful about the, कहते हैं ना तमाशा that is going on in social media, and more careful about the messaging that we're doing to the people that we want, that is our job to interact with. So बहुत सारी चीजें ऐसी होती हैं जिनको हम इग्नोर कर देते हैं, जो एक disinformation campaign चल रही होती है. Let me categorically say, कोई ऐसी मीटिंग नहीं थी जो हमने मांगी हो जो हमें डिनाई की गई. तो वो एक आ रहा था कि जी a certain minister refused to meet. We were there for a certain number of hours. We could only fit in a certain number of meetings, and that there's absolutely no truth in that whatsoever. In fact, if you were to ask me what is my assessment, I was very well received, as I expected to be. There was no reason why I should not have been well received. The other thing is that as far as the meetings are concerned, or the purpose of the trip is concerned, I feel we were able to achieve exactly what we wanted to achieve, and I don't want to delve greater into details. मैंने पहले भी कहा है, please respect the fact that our job is to do, or at least the way Pakistan looks at diplomacy is that our job is to do deep, useful diplomacy away from theatrics. So हम नहीं visits पे जाके या meetings करके बाहर आके कहते हैं हमने उसको ये कह दिया, हमने उनसे ये करवा लिया, हमने ये कर दिया, ये हमारा तरीका नहीं है और ना ही हम इस तरीकों को अपनाना चाहेंगे. हमारा तरीका ये है पाकिस्तान के इंटरेस्ट को प्रिजर्व करके, पाकिस्तान के जो भी इंटरेस्ट है उनको प्रोजेक्ट करने के लिए हमें जो करना पड़े वो हम करते हैं. कभी हम उसको सामने लेके आते हैं और कभी हम उसको बिल्कुल सामने नहीं लाते, क्योंकि सामने लाने से शायद उसका फायदा नहीं नुकसान होगा. ठीक है.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the clarification.
मुमलिकत खारजा हिना रब्बानी खर न्यूज़ कॉन्फ्रेंस कर रही हैं. उन्होंने कहा कि पाकिस्तान दहशतगर्दी के खात्मे के लिए हमेशा पेश रहा है और पाकिस्तान ने दहशतगर्दी के खिलाफ जंग में बहुत कुर्बानियां दी हैं.